Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, some good, some bad, some simply beyond this realm. The tales you are about to hear are the untold stories of those who entered the shadows, perhaps against their own will. These are the Terror Tapes. Terror Tapes, Episode 4, FearNet, Part 1. Bret's world was a monotonous cycle of waking up, arguing with his parents, and retreating to the confines of his room. Day in, day out, he lives the same life, never ceasing to change. Anyone else would lose their damn mind, but Bret found peace within this lifestyle. It wasn't that he enjoyed it, but it was comfortable. The lifestyle he previously lived didn't offer this much stability. It's a devil he's grown to know, and sometimes even love. If the worst he dealt with anymore was nagging parents followed by self-imposed isolation in his childhood room, then he'd consider things pretty decent. The sure beat running an ambulance rig, constantly carrying the weight of society's problems on his shoulders. It's a thankless job that comes with haunting memories that linger in the mind like cancer, festering and growing. The more you feed it, the heavier it gets. But fuck, when it's the only thing at the forefront of your mind, how do you not feed it? Bret's final call came when he was dispatched to a stab victim, a young teenage girl who had a rather violent disagreement with her basket case of a boyfriend. By the time he arrived, the cops had already secured the scene, ultimately by having to drop 5 bullets in the boyfriend. Bret and his partner ushered their gurney to the girl, loaded her up in the rig, and raced to the hospital. As Bret's partner zigzagged in the streets, dodging unaware motorists and blasting his horn and the occasional curse word, Bret went to work on the girl. Stop the bleed, Bret, he thought to himself. Though he had years on the rig, he found it's best to stick with the basics and walk himself through the process. Priority 1, stop the bleed. But where was the bleed? He did a blood sweep and found a few entry holes, but there was so much blood. How would he know this was it? He pressed gauze into the wounds, but the girl was bleeding through them as quickly as he'd apply them. The girl begged for her life as her blood continued to cover her and Bret's body. It was like a water main leak, except it's blood and an innocent person's life at stake. Bret continued to sweep the body for other wounds, finding more than he has hands to cover. "Hang on," the driver called. Suddenly, the ambulance came to a screeching halt as they nearly got T-boned in an intersection. "Go, go, go, we're losing her," Bret cried, and after the driver threw a less than endearing finger at the other drivers, he slammed on the pedal. The engines were almost screaming louder than the sirens. "This is 2-1. Have the trauma team ready for receiving. We're 30 seconds out," the driver called on the radio. Bret was really starting to panic because it seemed, despite his efforts, the bleeding didn't get any slower. Perhaps it got quicker as the girl's struggle worsened. The irony of life is the more you fight, the quicker it slips. But the more at ease you are, the less the body needs to maintain itself. But how would you keep it if you didn't fight? It's a balance that Bret still hadn't cracked even after 5 years of running a rig. At the end of the day, he figured life was just not fair sometimes. As they rounded the corner to the ambulance drop-off, the rig violently swerved out of the way of an unexpected pedestrian. The issue with hospitals is they're constantly littered with homeless being kicked out and not giving a fuck about anything hitting them, even a racing ambulance. The swerve threw Bret on the ground, who was positive the patient was going to be okay due to his elaborate but equal pressure applied to all the wounds. He even reassured her desperate eyes that she'd be okay, and she trusted him. Bret always had reassuring eyes that comforted all of his patients, even as they gripped to what little life they had left. "What the fuck, new guy? Did you forget your eyes at the scene?" Bret snapped at the driver. "Sorry, bro. Fucker came out of nowhere," the driver yelled back as they pulled into the ambulance bay. Before Bret could pull himself back up, the patient's hand gripped his forearm, her touch cold as ice and complete fear back in her eyes. "No, no, you will not die on me," Bret screamed as he scrambled to his feet. "You tried," were the final words that barely exhaled from her mouth as the life exited her face. The ambulance doors opened and the trauma team was ready. The driver ran around and started unloading her as Bret stared into the distant horizon. He was sure she'd be fine. They were almost there, seconds away from the hospital. After everyone had rushed inside with the girl, Bret remained sitting in one spot, blood everywhere. In the rig and over his body and soaked into his clothes. Despite doing this for half a decade, this one stung a bit more than normal. He ran 1,000 questions through his mind until his supervisor walked up and interrupted his thought. "Bret? Bret? Are you okay?" the supervisor asked. Bret responded by silently nodding his head while still staring off. "Get cleaned up and then stop by my office," the supervisor said before leaving Bret alone. Bret knew what was to come. He saw the signs months ago and waited until it was his turn on the chopping block. The company wasn't doing well, losing contracts left and right. It's common among privatized ambulances. The layoffs were part of the nature of the game. Even though he had more experience and tenure than the new driver, the company saw more potential in a young buck eager to cut his teeth than their veteran who didn't want to invest more into the company or themselves. But this wasn't how he intended to spend his life, chasing people's lives for them in the back of an ambulance. He had always wanted to be an ER physician and only took this job for the experience. It was only supposed to be a short stint while he finished his degree. But years after graduating, here he was, still in the same spot. Refusing promotions being pressed on him left and right. Why promote if you're going to leave anyway? This wasn't a forever job. In his mind, if he took a promotion, that might solidify him never chasing his dreams. But as Bret got the bad news that he no longer had a job, the comfort of stagnation brought on by the fear of the unknown became what set him back in life. He applied to medical school one time shortly after graduation, but after getting rejected, he never tried again, always saying, "I'll get to it later." But it wasn't until he found himself in the throes of losing a patient and his job that he realized his dream wasn't realistic. Right or wrong, it was a sign that this life wasn't for him. And it was time he started listening to the signs. This led him right where he started, in his childhood bedroom with the same people who raised him, back in the only world he knew to be safe and non-consequential. One day, after yet another verbal lashing from his father, Bret slouches on his bed and mindlessly browses his favorite thread site. That's when he sees it, an ad for FearNet. The ultimate adrenaline-pumping experience. The tagline sparks curiosity Bret didn't know he had. Maybe it's his old tendencies coming through. Once you work at a job that gives you the occasional adrenaline dump, it's hard to find excitement in anything else. Bret didn't find excitement in his daily life, but the monotony and knowing how each day would go satisfied his needs. Clicking the ad reveals a sleek promotional video showcasing FearNet as a cutting-edge app designed to confront users' deepest fears. Using augmented reality, FearNet immerses users in hyper-realistic scenarios tailored to their anxieties. The app boasts its ability to redefine fear and challenges users to face it head-on. Like many apps nowadays, it claims to use machine learning to become more powerful, offering more visceral experiences the more people use it. Intrigued and desperate for a distraction, Bret downloads the app. The interface is eerily polished, and its dark tones and minimalist design are unsettling, yet inviting. As he navigates around the interface, he can feel a subtle pulse vibrating from the phone, like the app is alive. On a whim, he enters one of his smaller fears, drowning. A rational fear that people have. Even competent swimmers don't want to drown, right? The app scans his surroundings through the phone's camera, and the transformation is instantaneous. His room dissolves into an ocean, complete with the muffled roar of waves and the bone-chilling cold of salt water, all viewed through the lenses of his phone. Bret watches, amused by the graphics and photorealism as water rises around him in the room. As he sits in his bed, he sees the water levels rise just above where his mouth is and then covering his nose. He chokes and coughs for a second, struggling to inhale as the water on the screen rises, almost fully submerging the room. His lungs start to burn as he instinctually flails, choking on water that isn't there. He tries to turn, but when he does, he gets the running sensation of water going up his nose, and he starts coughing more, making his choking worse. He starts to cough up water on his bed by the mouthfuls. With his heart racing and thumping so hard it might come out of his chest, Bret closes the app and all of the drowning sensations come to a halt. It takes him a moment to catch his breath, but he quickly deletes the app once he regains his bearings. As he sits back and observes the water in his room that wasn't there before, he tastes the salt water in the back of his throat, unsure about what exactly just happened. And that concludes part 1 of FearNet. Tune in next time for part 2. And that concludes another journey into the dark world of the terror tapes. If you enjoyed the terror, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join our growing legion of fear seekers, and together we'll explore the darkest corners of the unknown. Until next time, stay haunted.